guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Lazar, and today we're checking out Lepic. This is an advanced level guide. I'm talking about doing hard mode bosses either solo or with a party, so I'm gonna be assuming you already have a good understanding of Lepic's mechanics and gameplay style. Normally the stat differences between normal and ultimate aren't really that significant, but in the case of Lepic, well, the ultimate variant does have a whole lot more defense. Then again, we are gonna be building glass cannon anyway. The real differences being the exclusive Transcendent modules that the ultimate variant can use. Today we'll be focusing on Firearm Master that can be farmed by either combining modules or hard mode Obstructor. Firearm Master replaces his stock passive with a dual effect. Load Mastery that increases kill range for a set duration after weapon reload, and Change Mastery that increases kill power for a set duration after weapon swap. Note that activating Lepic's skill weapon Overkill also counts as a weapon swap, and both of the buffs have a visual representation on his right hand. Let's talk about one of the more tedious things to farm, the Reactor. Of course, it's gonna be a burning reactor, and on the bonus rolls, which essentially are the most important, you're looking at additional damage to Colossus and critical damage. Those theoretically should bring out the maximum amount of DPS. However, I would urge you to consider critical chance as well. If you manage to get a decent roll of critical chance on your Reactor, then your critical chance will go from 46.1 to something like 51%, making your runs more consistent. It's true, with critical damage on, you're gonna get to see higher numbers, and we do love big numbers, but sometimes it's a bit smarter to play, well, smarter, if you will. And of course, fire with tech, since we're gonna be using his ultimate ability Overkill to deal most of the damage. As for the set, obviously we're gonna be using the Slayer set. I did close to 100, around 100 runs solo pyro, and these are the best I could come up with. So, for the auxiliary power, you're looking at maximum HP with MP recovery out of combat, especially if you're gonna disengage away from the boss. This is gonna be fantastic. The sensor has been the bane of my existence. This one just refuses to drop the ideal sensor. You need max MP, that is mandatory, no questions about it. But ideally, as a secondary stat, you would have MP recovery in combat. And no matter how much I farm, I simply cannot get one that has both. However, they do exist. I do have official confirmation and print screens. You can get max MP with MP recovery, so maybe your RNG is a bit better than mine. As for the memory, you don't necessarily need defense per se. This is a glass cannon build anyway, but to get defense is really good, and the mandatory stat is going to be MP recovery modifier. As for the processor, this doesn't really affect your build performance per se, but ideally toxin resistant with max shield, even though it doesn't really matter all that much. Let's talk about weapons. You can use whatever weapon you want, but on your favorite weapon, make sure you have fired up and sharp precision shot. Why sharp precision shot? Because this one seems a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? With sharp precision shot, you're going to be getting the maximum amount of shots in a single cast. So while you do start off slower, you build up and ultimately end up with more shots in a single cast. Keep in mind that it doesn't really matter how you mod your weapon, just make sure you have fired up and sharp precision shot on your weapon, because Lepic's Overkill doesn't take anything else like damage, critical chance, critical damage. The critical chance and critical damage will be attributed to his skill critical chance and critical damage that you can always see in the screen, depending of course on how you mod it. Now, one more thing about sharp precision shot. Not all sharp precision shots are created equal. Read how this one works. Every 0.5 seconds up to 10 stacks. If you max out the sharp precision shot of impact rounds, that one gives you every 0.4 seconds. So in theory, that is an actual boost. But in testing, you're still gonna wind up with these 16 shots with this build. So it doesn't really matter which one you have. The idea is the following: if you already have a sharp precision shot maxed out, simply use the one you have maxed out for whatever ammo. You're still gonna be getting the 16 shots either way. This is the build you're gonna have to work towards, and unfortunately it's a bit expensive. You're gonna need an energy activator and 7 crystallization catalysts. Though you can make a cheaper version out of it. For example, you can forget about something like maximized duration, but of course that will mean less shots overall. Not all soloable bosses actually need 16 shots. Most of the bosses are gonna be killed in like 12, 14, something like that, as we're gonna be demonstrating later. Yeah. Alright, baby, are you hungry? Or do you need anything? I would also like to point out that because of all the current restrictions of the modding system, it's basically impossible for you as a player to have a proper maxed out bossing build or boss killer build and a proper maxed out area of effect or farming build. Unfortunately, you can't really do that because of all the different polarities that the mods have, so essentially you are making a choice. You either go one way or another. Thankfully, Nexon is aware of this, and there will be changes, or there are changes on the way that will make it doable for us to have, for the same character, very different setups. Thumbs up for that one, hopefully sooner rather than later. As for the build itself, all the CC and CD you can muster. Skill concentration, skill insight, frontlines, and emergency measures. These are mandatory mods. Then you're going to be going for Tech Specialist and Fire Specialist. One thing that I would like to know, maximize power. Maximize power is essentially a noob trap. Don't go for it on Lepic, and I'll tell you why. Normally your overkill has a huge and absolutely huge base skill multiplier, 2.7k. If you're gonna be adding maximize power, then you can't have Tech Specialist. You know what's the difference between these two? 10,000 damage on white and about 40,000 damage on a crit. So essentially, just for that speck of extra damage, you want to renounce skill cooldown 50%. It's simply not worth it. While mathematically you are getting a sliver of a hair more damage, I would 100% recommend you go for Tech Specialist. And this goes for any source of skill power or skill power modifier on Lepic in general, because again, you do have a huge base of overkill. This is I don't want to call it diminishing returns, because technically the game doesn't really have this type of diminishing returns built into it. This is mathematical diminishing returns. Essentially, you can think about it like this, and this goes for any damage build. The more you have of the exact same multiplier, the less and less you're getting out of it. So if you're going for the maximum amount of damage, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the smartest idea to try to go for most, if not all, the multipliers you can muster. So forget about skill power when it comes to Lepic. One last thing that I wanted to point out, there's one more, maximize skill. Essentially the same goes for this one, use Fire Specialist instead of maximize skill. This one theoretically gives you a little bit more, I think it's 85, 87 point something, but again you're gonna be losing skill cooldown 50%. And since we're talking about cooldown, let's talk about cooldown. The cooldown on this one, your bread and butter, is absolutely insane at, what is it? 80 seconds. But there is a trick to it, you can die and raise yourself. Now that will cost you 1 death count, but that gets you a full reset on all of your abilities. Normally when you're playing solo, that's not gonna happen, because the bosses are gonna be dying, all of them, within 12 seconds or less, depending on how good or how well you rolled your RNG. But when you're playing with other players, they might take offense to you kamikazing all the time, so bear that one in mind. That 80-second cooldown is definitely a doozy. If you play into cooldown reduction, however, you are sacrificing some of your damage. And I know you boys want the most amount of damage. Let's talk about strong mentality. You can go for this one, or you can go... What we tested is maximize conservation minus 35.4%, and we reduced that skill power modifier. As we established earlier, you can knock out that skill power modifier. It doesn't really matter. Your difference in damage between the minus 20% and not the minus 20% is going to be like 2k, 3k, something of the sort. The thing is, you don't really need maximized conservation. You are going to be getting the full 16 shots with strong mentality, so why bother? Dangerous ambush. You guys know this one by now, right? If it's not targeting you, fantastic. If it's down, fantastic. You gotta have this one on Lepic, especially if you're playing solo, because essentially all of the bosses will be acting the same. You do a couple of shots, they go down, and then you get the full amount of power out of Dangerous Ambush. Now you might be wondering, why are you using Secret Garden? Is it that good of a gun, or is it just the Victorian pink steel dildo look that you enjoy? Well, the idea here, the idea that took about 2 days to test and put into full fruition, is to use the unique ability Pest Control. Check this one out. Trigger rate 50%, duration 10 seconds at a full 5 out of 5, max attacks free, firearm attack, skill power, and you also get firearm attack and skill power per stack. And we thought, perfect, we're gonna be able to trigger this one with Lepic's Grenade, a tech skill. We're gonna ramp it up before combat so we get all the mana back and everything, and then boom, when we hit the boss, we're gonna have the full stacks of skill power. And that works to a certain extent, because as soon as you activate Overkill, it counts as a different weapon, so the buff is taken away from you. In instances, even Overkill will activate 1 additional stack, but then it will just completely remove it. So that didn't work, sadly. In gameplay, you're going to be doing the following rotation. Activate your second ability, Overclock, then go into Overkill, dodge out of the way so you actually cancel the animation and get more shots, and that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 shots. 16 shots out of Overkill with a single cast, and that's going to be essentially annihilating well, everything in solo. As for public games, you're still gonna be able to absolutely melt everything except the last boss, which currently is the Devourer clone. Gluttony, that's the one. Now, during that test, did you notice what did I ran out of? Because I actually ran out of two things. I ran out of duration and I also ran out of mana. I can fix the mana in a couple of ways. If I go for maximized conservation, like so. And since we're on the subject of mana, if you are to go for the MP mods, because we also tested these, Enlightenment, and there's another one that gives you a bit more. There you go, max MP 20% with max HP minus 50% HP conservation. If you go for either of these, you're still getting off 16 shots either way. So if you have one of these maxed out, even though I wouldn't go for HP conservation because you're glass cannony enough as it is, Enlightenment is a bit cheaper, or you already have it maxed out, go for that one instead of your skill cost reduction mod. Maximize conservation. Okay, so we fixed our skill cost, right? We're not going to be running out of mana anytime soon. What do we need? Duration. And here is where we kind of run into a wall. Duration from what? MP Accelerant? Can't do that. You're gonna have to unequip maximize duration. What you can go for is battle stamina with 8.8% duration. Of course, there might be some shenanigans to play with weapons, but let me know in the comment section down below. Do you know of any weapons that increase duration for your skills? Now, if we are to equip front lines and emergency, man, I hate this modding. Fine, we're gonna test it like so, just so you can see how many shots we can get out of. We gotta be in combat so the mana doesn't automatically regenerate, because then you're essentially tricking yourself if you're just shooting the ground or something. And go. 1. "17, baby, 17 shots." So we just need a smidge more duration just to get one additional shot off. But here's the thing, you don't really need it. Most bosses you're gonna be fighting with solo, at least, are not even gonna take the 16 shots that you can normally do. They're gonna die around, I don't know, if it's Devourer, I think he dies in like the first 10 shots. Maybe Swamp Walker gets the shot number 14, 15, maybe 16. So there you go. If you can find one additional source of duration without sacrificing your actual damage, then you're good to go for a couple of more shots. What weapon gives duration? It's gotta be some ultimate weapon that gives duration. Now, instead of showing you my carefully edited best runs, how about I take you through a live run through all these soloable bosses, just so you can get a more realistic understanding of what you should expect. Now, I start firing early for this guy simply because I want to build up my fire rate because of sharp precision shot. Crit, damn you! You're gonna be yelling at your screen to crit a lot, even though you have 45 seconds. That's it. This is my first run. Make sure to pick up the gold every time, the gold and the Kuiper, because you get like 40-50,000 gold off of this. Trust me, I would know. So, how many seconds did that take? 9 seconds. I think my best run on this guy was something like 7 seconds. Quick tip, the annoying part about Dead Bride is the fact that she has a range gameplay style, so make sure you chase her, right? As soon as the fight starts, just jump into the thing, it's gonna be fine, trust me. So just do this. And pray for crits. Oh, that hurt you badly, didn't it? That's it. So much for Dead Bride. You don't need to run out of the lava anymore. Thanks to the last patch, it doesn't deal damage anymore after you defeated the boss. Give me the money. I need the money. I'm poor. What was that? 9 seconds. Again, on Dead Bride, you can get it as low as 7 seconds. Max MP? No way! I hate this game. I hate this game. Max MP with MP recovery in combat, and oh my god, their ultimate rolls. But it's on the wrong bloody... Again, because the Devourer dies very easily, make sure you start firing way before. Put him on the ground, right? And now he should be hit. Build up that fire rate. Boom, Devourer. That's it, that was kind of slow. My best time on this guy, I think, was 6 seconds or something of the sort. And time is 8 seconds. Not too shabby. One thing that I did forget to mention up until this point, try to avoid hitting weak points. His overkill ability doesn't really care about weak point damage, not at all. But if you break a weak point on one of these bosses, they get a huge chunk of frenzy gauge. So sometimes it might happen that the boss just goes to frenzy and you don't understand why. Try to avoid breaking weak points, yeah? And the same for this guy. The same as before. I'm gonna go close to him. Don't run away from me, guy. I'm gonna hit you in the crotch. Crit, damn you! Did it crit? Didn't crit. More crits. 10 seconds. Now about this guy, make sure you chase him down because he's got like this nasty habit of running away from you. So go right underneath it and pray to our Jesus for them crits. Stand still, you ugly son of a gun. Don't worry about the lava too much because the lava doesn't deal that much damage. It never has. It's just that people get all antsy about it. And that's Swamp Walker. Oh, speaking about walkers, that's a weird segue. Frost Walker, the newly nerfed Swamp Frost Walker. If you got 3 Lepics, you can kill him before his first frenzy phase. You don't even need 4. And he would be able to solo it if the developer would let us solo Frost Walker. And I think they should because, let's be honest, he's not that tough anymore, especially not after the nerf. 12 seconds or 13 seconds. Best time on this one, I have 11 seconds. And that's pretty much it to the guide. What can I tell you about Lepic that you don't already know? He is the best at doing bosses, and you should definitely farm Ultimate Lepic. It took me about a day to get all of the necessary components, but you could say I was lucky, unlike that sensor. And he does a fantastic job when playing in a party as well. The problem with playing in a party is the fact that you are very glass cannony. Essentially, you do your cooldowns, you run away, and you wait for reset. You can also try something like dying, but your party might have something to say regarding that. If you manage to get 2 additional Lepics with you, or even 3, you're gonna have no problem in nuking essentially any multiplayer boss in the game. As always, my name has been Lazar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content. And if you love the content, consider supporting us via Patreon or using my next song creator code. All the information in the description down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!